Welcome to the Quilt Show. Come a little closer. You are going to love today's show. It is so revealing. No, we're talking about strips and all the fabulous things you can do with these strips. Stick around. It's an awesome show.
Welcome to the Quilt Show. You know, Ricky, when I think about what I have enjoyed over the last 30 years of being a quilter, I mean, I remember when the rotary cutter came on scene.
Right, that made a big impact.
Huge. And, you know, so many other things, that the long arm, you know.
Well, even more recently for cutting the AccuQuilt, that whole thing has been revolutionary. But one thing for sure that has really made a big impact is 2.5-inch strips. Who would have thought?
You know, I have a bunch of those Moda jelly rolls, do you?
Absolutely, and I'll tell you, I oftentimes go to my stash and I will just cut strips because I know if I've got strips or sometimes even squares or whatever, I can just design on the wall and make things happen really fast. But speaking of doing things fast, we have a guest with us today who makes quilts out of 2.5-inch strips and designs quilts that will knock your socks off. So we have with us today Daniela Stout. Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
We're so glad you're here.
Thank you.
Now, you're a quilt shop owner, right?
Yes, I am.
Tell us about that.
My quilt shop is outside San Diego. It's called Cozy Quilt Shop. And I opened the shop in 2003. And soon after opening the shop, we realized we needed to bring in customers. So we started something we call Strip Club.
Strip Club.
Yes.
And has that been popular?
Oh, it's been very popular. When we started it, we started to cut down 2.5-inch strips of every fabric that came through the door. Well, you can imagine that those fabrics just didn't coordinate well, and there were a whole lot of them. So after a period of time, we started to cut down coordinated bundles.
Okay, so whose idea was that? Who said, okay, every bolt that comes in, was that you?
I think it was. I think it was, or I heard about it someplace else and decided to implement it in the shop and to create the Strip Club, because, you know, the name is just so much fun.
Sure. And so when people come in, do they even have the option of buying 1.5 yards of anything?
Well, yes.
Please do, right?
Please, of course.
Okay.
So tell me how this ties in. I mentioned the Moda jelly rolls. How did all this kind of come together, of your best understanding?
Well, we were doing the 2.5-inch strips, and we were doing Strip Club. And I actually presented it to a number of other quilt shops, and they liked the idea, and they wanted to do something similar because it creates great energy, there's terrific patterns, and it's a whole new way to look at quilts.
Well, and good results fast.
Absolutely.
Very self-fulfilling in that respect.
Absolutely.
Well, I look at the quilts around here, and that's what you said, fast. They look like they're fast and fun, and you can just knock them out.
But great impact.
Yes.
Good success.
Thank you. I think so too.
It's
Yes.
that instant gratification.
Yes.
So let's look at some of the quilts, okay? Let's starting with the one that's over our shoulder here. Tell
This
us about
quilt is
that.
called Trade Winds, and it was originally a free download that we lent to Hoffman Fabrics of California. And since then, we have retained the rights back again, and we have it as a published pattern. It uses our tube technique, and each of those triangles that create the pinwheels are cut with the tube technique, and then they're very simple blocks that are assembled together and then twisted and turned to create the design.
Okay, you're saying words I haven't heard before, tube technique. You're going to show that later?
Yes.
Okay, excellent.
Yeah.
Cool.
Okay, now the quilt over there behind the demo, wow, that's really graphic. Was that scrap fabrics or?
There were 40 different fabrics that we cut off of bolts from our floor. And I like this pattern so much because, well, I call it the tall, skinny blonde because it looks good in anything. With the fabrics, we just add a light background and a dark background and create the block. It's the same block over and over again. It's just twisted to create that effect. It's called tube top.
Okay, now if these quilts are all made out of 2.5-inch strips, do you ever get any pushback from people that say, you know, isn't that cheating, or you're just buying pre-cut? And I mean, what do you feel about that?
I tell you, I don't hear that much from my customers, although I have heard it here and there that is cheating. I've even heard that it's dumbing down of quilting. But I don't think that's true at all. I think what it does, it creates a way for customers. There are two main hurdles when it comes to fabric and strips. One is cutting, and the other is color. And so when you have a bundle of coordinated fabrics, you are able to accomplish, or you'll be able to get over those two hurdles. You cut the fabrics and they're already coordinated. So I liken it to pre-shredded lettuce and grated cheese.
Sure.
You know,
And we
you
do
go to
that.
the grocery store, you pick that up, it's still cooking.
Yes.
It's just a little bit of a head start. So I see strips as a head start to making quilts.
And my guess is that you have a lot of younger clientele.
We do. We have some, yes. We have all ages.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah,
okay.
yeah. Yeah.
All right, so now let's look at the next quilt, this brightly
Is it
colored.
Little Miss Bright.
Right.
This is called Double Diamond, and it is on the cover of our strip tubing book. This was designed by my mom, Georgette DeLorco. And what we have done here is taken the strips and then added 2 additional background fabrics to create the effect. It's a white and sort of an off-white. And those 2 effects are subtle enough, but they're different enough, and that I think really creates the dynamic look of the quilts.
Now, I understand that once a month you have a thing at your store, and
Yeah.
there's like hundreds of people that come.
Yes.
What if you're down in San Diego visiting and you want to, do you do drop-ins and things like that?
Absolutely. We welcome everyone to come down into the shop. Our strip club is held on the 2nd Saturday of every month, and then the following Monday. The Saturday meeting is 8:30 in the morning, so you have to get up and
Nice.
get there early.
Get up and get going.
And the reason for that was our class schedule was full in the classroom. So when we decided we want to actually do presentations and debut a new quilt every month, we had to do it outside regular hours. So that's why the Saturday meetings are 8:30 in the morning.
Super, super great.
I know.
Yeah.
And then we do one on the following Monday at 5:30 in the evening for those people who can't make Saturdays.
Now, I noticed that you like batiks because this next quilt have a lot of batiks, or is it all batiks? I can't tell from here.
Oh, I think it is all batiks, but I have no problems mixing batiks with regular cotton fabrics. So it's possible that some of those are not batiks.
Okay.
So tell us about this
Yeah.
quilt.
This quilt is called Dreamweaver, and it, in addition to the strips, which I believe were also cut from the fabric off of our floor, it uses a background fabric to create sort of an arrow effect. And the strips are pieced one way, and then the other side of the triangle square is pieced the other way. And then their block is just simply twisted and turned to create an effect of a weave.
I think it's great. Now, with all of this that's going on, what were you in a previous life?
Oh, I worked for a book distributor.
Really?
Yes, so I wasn't in the quilt world at all. When we opened up the shop, my husband had a dream to run a business, and I had the love of quilting, and so we combined our passions and we opened up the shop.
And this is not what you thought the direction of your life would go?
Absolutely not. Certainly, writing patterns, publishing books was not in the business plan when we opened up the shop, but it's been a fabulous direction. We're having so much fun.
Well, we happen to be taping in Eleanor Burns' living room,
We are, really, we are.
and I am thinking that this quilt over the fireplace perhaps belongs here.
Yeah, we put it up on the wall here at Quilt in a Day Studios. We're in San Marcos, California, by the way, and this quilt looks so great over the mantel, but give us a little talk about this.
Well, this quilt is called Lotus Blossom, and this is fun because it also uses the tube technique along with some background fabric, but the block in this quilt is not a square. It's actually a rectangular block. Here it is very wide and short, but when the full-size quilt is opened up, it's long and narrow. And it very simply features the 2.5-inch strips and some background fabric to create a fantastic design.
Wow. Well,
I know.
I know that everybody's sitting here going, okay, the tube technique.
Yeah.
We've been hearing about it now through this whole segment. And when we come back, is it me? I think I get to. You're going to teach me all about that.
I think they say it's hip to be square.
They do. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. Welcome back to the Quilt Show. Daniela, I love what you're doing with 2.5-inch strips. And you've been talking about the tube technique, and I think I saw it a few years ago, but I have totally forgotten about it, and I want you to show everybody how easy this is.
Oh, I'm excited to show you how easy this is.
All right, so what is the project that we're going to work on?
We're going to work on a pattern called Strip It, Tube It.
Strip it, tube it.
Strip it, tube it.
All
It's
right.
exactly what it says. First you have your strips, and then you're going to make a tube, and then you're going to make your quilt.
All right, so let's talk about the strips. They're 2.5 inches. We know that already.
They are 2.5
and then
inches.
What do we do next?
Well, first I started with some 2.5-inch strips that we cut off of our floor at my quilt shop. You can also start with a bundle of Hoffman Bally Pops, or you can use jelly rolls, or you can use just about any pre-cut 2.5-inch strips.
Okay.
And then I picked a background fabric. The background fabric in this case is sort of a beige fabric, and it has contrast to the strips.
Okay, let's look at all the colors that you've got. You've got 4 strips total.
4 strips for now. Mm-hmm.
And these are just colors that are coordinating.
Yes.
All right, so the blue is another color that's coordinating. And in this case, you're calling this a background, and in this case, it's almost white.
Yes.
Okay. That's important. Why?
This color is important because it goes nicely with these fabrics, but it also has high contrast. If you're working with fabrics, a bundle of 40 different strips, you're going to have 40 different values, 40 different colors, 40 different looks, which is very exciting. It can be very daunting, but it is very exciting. The thing you need most of all is contrast on all of those fabrics.
Right.
So here we have a beige, and I know for a fact that this will contrast to each of those fabrics.
Now, if somebody wanted to have a blue background or a green background, as long as that strip is always the same, that would still be called the background.
Yes,
okay.
absolutely. Right. And you can vary the background colors too. It just has to have the contrast to the rest of the strips.
Okay.
Okay. So here we have 2 strips that we have sewn together with a 1/4-inch seam, full width of fabric, and I've just picked 2 randomly. I don't pay too much attention to fabrics that make sure they match, because if you try to control Scrappy, Scrappy will control you. There's no point in trying.
That's true.
So here we have 1 strip set, measures 4.5 inches.
Right.
Only in quilting does 2.5 plus 2.5 equal 4.5.
Right, of course.
And here we have another strip set, which is also a strip from the strip bundle, and then a background fabric. And the background fabric strip is also 2.5 inches. So this also measures 4.5 inches wide.
Okay, and accuracy, I assume, is important.
Accuracy is very important.
So the 2 things so far I'm hearing is cutting accuracy and sewing with a 1/4-inch seam accuracy. How do you manage your 1/4-inch seam?
I use my 1/4-inch seam foot on my Bernina and
The rest
go
is
at
history.
it.
There you go.
Yeah,
Okay.
the rest is good.
All right.
So when we take these strip sets, we press the seams in one direction, and on this side we have the other strip set, and we've pressed the seams towards the dark, in this case away from the background.
Okay, so they're going in opposing directions.
They're going in opposing directions because now we will put one on top of the other, and those seams will nest.
Okay, perfect.
And that makes a really nice partnership between those 2 strip sets.
And you can feel this matching.
Yes, that's
Okay?
what we mean
And
by
is,
nest.
Is it more important that they match here or on the edge if there's any discrepancy?
It is more important they match on the edge if there is any discrepancy, because now we're going to stitch a 1/4-inch seam along the edge of one side and then back down the edge of the other side. So it's very important that these 2 lay flat together when we create this tube.
All right, so you're going to make a U-turn. You're going to come up the road this way and come all the way back down the road that way.
Yes.
Right?
Yep,
Okay,
that's
got it.
exactly what we're going to do.
All right.
And here we have one.
Ta-da-da-da-da-da. There you go.
So here we have a completed tube. It is sewn together, which is a little confusing at first, but then when you see how the rest of it goes, you can see how it all comes
All right,
together.
I just want to show, there's our tube.
It's almost like a sleeve. You could put your hand all the way through it.
Sure.
Well,
Well, maybe.
you'd have to have a very long arm.
Okay, now this is going to involve some rulers, right?
Yes.
All right, let's talk about your rulers.
Okay, we have developed the strip tube ruler because this tube technique, we didn't originate this tube technique, but we have developed a ruler that makes it a lot easier. The ruler has measurements down the side. Those aren't triangle measurements, they're actually square measurements, and I'll show you how they work.
Okay.
So here we have our strip set on our cutting mat, and depending on the pattern that you're using, the design that you're creating, will depend on what measurements you're going to use. In this case, for our design, we want the 5.5-inch measurement.
Okay.
So we will take that 5.5 inch, and as I tell my customers and students, 5.5 is between 5 and 6. So you put the 5.5 inch measurement.
And that's the dotted line.
That's the dotted line.
All right.
Put the 5.5 inch on your thread, so on the seam.
Not on the edge of the fabric.
Not on the edge of the fabric.
Critical.
That is critical.
Very important.
If it does work on the edge, if you can make it fit, you just won't have the right size block. It's not wrong, it's just different.
Yes, I understand.
So here we have the 5.5 inch on the bottom stitching line, and then we take our rotary cutter and we'll cut all the way up. Sorry.
That's all right. I do that every now and then too. It happens. All right.
And it won't matter for the next cut, so you
Right.
just push that aside and then you
Okay.
recut. And then the
And
next
this
cut,
was a little accident. We've all done that, right? Okay.
and then we'll cut down the other side.
And that's your first unit.
And that's our first unit. So
Okay.
it's a triangle.
Okay.
And then we pull it away from the tube and we open it and we create
that.
our diagonally pieced square.
That is great. All right, go ahead and do the next one for us because there is a step to doing the next one.
Yes,
okay?
so we're going to work down the tube, cut off of one seam and then cut off the top seam and then the bottom seam and then the top seam. Now, as if that first cut wasn't bad enough, this next cut here on camera will just be impossible with this angle. So here's my little tip, which you won't read in any of the patterns. You flip your tube over this way, and now you can put your ruler on the bottom stitching line even though it's the other seam.
Right, and in this case, 5.5 inches still on the actual sewn line.
Yes.
And even though we had that little boo-boo there,
Yep.
you're just going to move it down and you're just going to trim that off. And
You are
keep
just going to
going.
make fresh cuts up and then down. And in fact, even if there wasn't a little boo-boo, I always recommend making fresh cuts because then your block will be true to this seam, which is the middle of the block, rather than a seam that doesn't even exist in the block.
Right, so you're not using the previous cut as the main guide, you're
Right.
still using that seam as a guide.
Right.
Okay, great. So now we've made, how many blocks like this will we make?
We probably will get 7 or 8 out of a strip set for this size.
Okay, are we ready to move this aside?
Sure.
All right. So what's next?
So here we have 2 of those blocks sewn together. And you notice that the fabric placement is different in the blocks. It's the same the same 4 fabrics, but the places differently. Here we have the blue and the brown, and here the blue is much larger and the
Yes.
brown is much smaller.
And did that happen just by flipping and flopping?
Exactly, because you're working off of the different seams.
Ah.
And then here, and this is the magic, is the background fabric. The background fabric here is very long, and here's the same background fabric, and it comes to the point. So as we go down the tube, we will have blocks that look like this and blocks that look like that.
Right.
We can twist and turn a few of those blocks and marry partners together. So
at
this
that.
block is a mirror and that block is another mirror.
That's great.
And then we can complete our
Now,
our
are you
completed
sewing
block.
that?
Sure.
All right, let's do
give it a
it.
sew.
So I would assume that, of course, in this case, you've got seams going in opposite directions.
Seams going in opposite directions. And you notice I didn't press these. I just sort of finger press them. And as I go to sew, I will hold the intersection of the seams together and then sew the rest of it without pinning. I don't always pin. Sometimes it's just faster not to pin. Well, it's always just faster. And with a block like this, it isn't terribly difficult. We can guide it all the way without having to pin.
I believe there are 2 schools of thought on pinning.
Yes.
I tend not to pin if I don't have to pin. And there's a lot of people that will pin no matter what. And I'm like, save some time because if you don't have to pin, look at that.
Look at that.
That's perfect and it wasn't pinned. So I think it is certainly something that you could consider doing, saving a little bit of time by not doing the pinning. So this is the block.
This is the block.
All right, and now the quilt, right?
Yes.
Which is behind us, is that
I
right?
believe it is.
Okay, so this quilt is basically made from what you've just shown us. Let's do the big reveal. You take that side, I'll take this side, and look at that. Isn't that beautiful?
This is the same repeating block over and over again. The only thing that varies are the fabrics. The background fabric is the same in all blocks, and so here, that scary 40 different fabrics now comes into play to create a really terrific quilt. And 40, actually I think it only needs 39, is the number that are in most of the jelly rolls and the bally pops out there. So with a little background and some borders, you can turn a bally pop into a nice throw size quilt.
That is wonderful. Now let's talk a little bit about doing this block. In the event that someone doesn't have your ruler, or let's just say that in these economic times they just can't get it, which we hope you can, but you have a little trick for using just a regular square ruler. So
Indeed.
Tell us about that.
Well, because as I mentioned before, the measurements here are square rulers, or square measurements, not triangle measurements. They are exactly the same as a square up ruler. So they're the exact same measurements, which is why when we cut this block, we're actually cutting a 5.5 inch square. So it'll be a 5-inch finished block, which is really nice, also great for squaring up, by the way.
Right.
So here for the, all you need to accomplish the same thing is a square up ruler that's at least a 1/2 inch larger than your desired size. So here we wanted 5.5 inch. This is a 6.5 inch square up ruler.
So it's big enough.
So it's big enough. Obviously you can't do smaller, but you do want to have a little give in the ruler. You don't want to have it go all the way to the edge. So we look down one side to the 5.5 inch mark and down the other side to the other 5.5 inch mark. And here I have put some glow line tape from edge to edge, from point to point.
Right, and show how you would use that on this strip.
Exactly the same way as we did on the other. Let's do it this way so you can see. Exactly the same, except now you have to pay attention that you're using the dash mark between the 5 and the 6 on one side and the dash mark between the 5 and the 6 on the other side.
And even more helpful is the fact that you put the tape.
Yes.
So that's your mark.
That is your guide, and that guide goes against the seam allowance. Now you have to be sure that this guide is as straight as can be. With our ruler, it's printed, so it's easy to see, but with this one, you're really relying on the accuracy of that tape
Okay.
to make
Well, we're going to encourage people to go to your website. Tell us what that would be.
cozyquilt.com.
And find the strip tube ruler.
Yes.
Now, Daniela, you are also a publishing company. You've done how many titles?
We have published 12 titles. I have authored, I think, 5 or 6 of those titles.
And this is the strip tubing book.
This is the strip tubing
that
book.
they can also find on your website. And several patterns, not just books, but several patterns that you've done that all use these 2.5-inch strips.
Yep.
That use the strip tube ruler and really get some great instant results.
Yes.
I'm excited about this.
Good.
Thank you so much for sharing this. Well, we're not done, because after the break, you're going to work with Alex and show her some more tips and tricks on another project, right?
Yes.
All right, so that's coming up after the break. Don't go anywhere.
Welcome back. It's my turn to hang out with Daniela. I've never seen that before.
It's neat, isn't it?
It's totally neat. And what I love about it so much is that it's so fast.
Yes.
You know, and if you're a beginning quilter, it's a great place to start. And if you're someone who's been around the pool hall for a while, it's a great way to whip out quilts for gifts or charity or whatever.
Or if you're in love with a bundle of 2.5-inch strips and you wonder, what can I do with that? I just want to put it in a quilt. Here we go.
Well, you are the queen of 2.5-inch strips, and it's my understanding that you do wonder about it a lot and think, okay, what can we do to make it different?
Well, we put out a pattern once a month that uses 2.5-inch strips. So we are on a perpetual quest to find ways to use 2.5-inch strips.
Well, let's go back to this block that you did. It's just absolutely adorable, but even it can have a variation in it.
Oh yeah, many variations.
Okay, so let's take a look at this block.
Okay, the only difference between this block and the block that we did previously is that here we have background fabric as the second strip set. It's just a solid 4.5-inch background piece, and then the strips are used on the other half of the block.
Okay, so you don't count, so you do break the rules, say, and add in more strips.
Oh, there are no rules. Oh, you can
Okay.
add in so many different strips, so many different ways, and create many, many different types of blocks. The one we showed you is just sort of my favorite, but it's not the only block that you can create.
Well, speaking of that,
Yeah.
here's a block of yours.
Yes.
And that's just strips. There's nothing fancy going on in that. Do you always do them so controlled like this?
Oh, you mean the fabrics? Oh, no, not at all. I love scrappy quilts, and so to mix and match those fabrics is a constant joy of mine.
Okay.
For example, this one, which all uses the same strip in here and black background fabric, we've done so that the middle part changes. But then there's some consistency in the outer points.
Those are just half square triangles, or is it a flip and sew?
It's a flip and sew.
We'll talk about that in a little bit,
Yeah.
okay? Look at that.
Yeah, isn't this block great?
Yes.
It's so dynamic, it's so interesting, but it is all still 2.5-inch strips. And actually, the 2.5-inch strips come from the strip set, or the black, and then the brown, and then this is what we consider the background fabric. A little more interesting than the cream we saw before, but it's still a background fabric.
Okay, and then here is this one.
Yep, just your plain chain block, using all the same fabrics and the background fabric. Now, you could easily do this one scrappy also.
Okay, now behind us we have a quilt that's made out of that. I'm going to get it and take a look at it. And this one is fairly scrappy or not so much?
Oh, this is very scrappy.
Okay.
The blocks that have, the churn dash blocks here are very controlled in that they all come from the same strip sets, but the chain blocks are all pieced so that they mix and match and they come from different strips.
So how long does it take you to whip one out like this? I hate it when people ask, but I mean truly.
Oh, I don't tell.
Okay. Don't ask me to tell how old or how much you weigh. Sorry.
Well, you know, these quilts are made to go together quickly because not only do we create a pattern once a month, we have to make the quilt every month. So we're making a full bed-size quilt once a month. Sometimes 2 a month, and if we do a book on top of that, that's in addition to the other quilts that we make.
Okay, so here I am particularly drawn to this quilt. It's got that adorable 9 patch in the
Yes,
center, but then you've got, again, the flip and sew. And
Yes.
if somebody doesn't know what that is, could you please explain that?
I'm happy to show you how that works. First, we start with the background fabric. In this case, it's 6.5 inch cut. Again, it's 2.5 inch wide to start, then cut 6.5 inches. Here we have, from strips, 2 matching 2.5 inch squares. Normally we draw a diagonal line on the back, but sometimes you can just fold it so you can see where the seam is or where the seam will be.
I usually draw a line.
Do you?
Yeah.
Do you use a chalk? We like to draw the lines with pencils or with chalk. In this case, I've just pressed it so that I can get an idea of where it goes, because we're just going to put this together very quickly. Here we have the square positioned on one corner and then another square positioned on the other corner. Then we're simply going to take this to the sewing machine and stitch along that folded line, actually just a thread inside towards the point. After we've stitched, we fold over that point and we create that segment that you see in the block here. Here I have one done, one completed.
Okay, how do you feel about trimming that out? Yes, no, yay?
Yes, yes,
Okay,
yes.
okay.
Otherwise, there's just too much bulk. Take the first thing I do is make sure that the top fabric goes to the point. That way we keep the integrity of the rectangle. Underneath, and with just a 1/4 inch from this seam, we just whack that off and either put it away for another project or, yeah, just put it in that bin that I intend to use one day, but probably never will.
Though this is a different color, that's what it is right there. You've got your 9 patch, little squares in the corner, and it's so easy.
It's very easy, but it's really dynamic.
Let's take a look at this. Now, what I like is that you've taken the original block and made it into a pinwheel. Explain to people, if they're beginners, what a pinwheel is.
Well, pinwheel is a simple block with diagonal seams that go all the way across, and each of the colors are in the outer corners to create the look of a pinwheel. So here we have the pinwheel block and the block we just saw, and they alternate. And I'm just such a huge fan of 2 block quilts, and here's an excellent example of how 2 blocks can play with each other. They're easy to make, especially if you strip piece. They're very simple. They come together quickly, but they play so nicely together, and they get that secondary design when things match in the middle, and I just love that effect.
I like 2 block quilts too. I think that sometimes you get a block, and every time you turn it, nothing interesting happens. You know, not like the block you were doing earlier, that when you turn it, you get an interesting diagonal going on, like this one. And so when I have a block that's semi-static with something like this, I always consider putting another block with it.
They can meet together and create interesting things in the corners, and then they can complement each other and play off of each other really nicely.
Well, I just think this is just like a riot of color.
Yeah.
I love it. Oh, there's your pinwheel.
There's the pinwheel.
Fun, fun, fun. Okay, now if you're not that interested in doing a big quilt, you also make these table runners. So let's take a look at this one.
Yeah, blocks don't have to go just into large quilts. They can also go into table runner. And here we have, once again, 2 blocks that are put together with a little outer border and inner border and an outer border, and they play so nicely together. And what a great way to use those bundles again.
Yes. Okay, here, you put a little sashing in it. You
Yes.
take that in. You really like batiks, don't you?
Oh, I love batiks. I really do. So here we have the same block over and over again, only now it's broken up with just a little bit of sashing that then repeats for the inner border. We have that dynamic outer border. Now these fabrics, interestingly enough, they all come from the same strip set. So this background fabric is just a lighter strip from the strip set. So it's not additional fabric, it's right out of the strips. So with a strip bundle, say the Bally Pops or one of the roll-ups, you can create the blocks, and all you need then is the sashing and the borders.
Well, I know a lot of people have these at home, and it makes me want to seek them. I think this is so much fun. I mean, seriously.
And I'm going to use a lot of the techniques that I've learned today, and a lot of them are out of the Strip 6 book that is also available on your website. I'm having a great time watching all of this because I'm thinking of the quilts that I need to make. I've got a gift.
Gifts,
Yeah,
gifts.
it's just...
And those bundles you probably collected and you just need to use now.
Well, and I don't mean to even sound like we're dummying quilting down to any level, but I also know that there's a lot of people that want to get their friends into the fold. And if you can give them something like this that is
Like
easy
a
to
jelly
do,
roll.
Yes, and they can make something with it with a lot of instant gratification. Maybe they'll just get hooked like the rest of us and become members of the quilting club, right?
Yes.
That would be great.
That's what we want.
So thank you so much.
anyways, I just want to encourage people to go to your website. You have a lot of great stuff there. Again, if you're in the San Diego area, this is all on your website, right? During one of her happenings, I know I will be there.
Oh, fantastic. Love to have you.
So thank you so
Thank you.
much for
Thank
being
you.
on the Quilt
I'm
Show.
happy to share it.
It's great. Coming up after the break, we're going to meet a quilter named Barbara Shapel, and she does two-sided quilts, and it's not just back art. She really puts a lot of thought into it. You don't want to miss this. Coming up next.
Welcome back. Recently, we took our cameras and went to Washington State.
It's really fun, Alex, whenever we hear about somebody and it's like, let's send the cameras. Well, we sent the cameras to Washington State to meet with Barbara Shapel, and her quilts are really inspired by nature. As a matter of fact, the nature of her quilts is to put something on the front and the back, and I'm not talking just about back art. So take a look at Barbara's work.
I'm a contemporary fiber artist and I live in Washougal, Washington. I'm probably most known for doing two-sided quilts. Oftentimes I will have a daytime, nighttime, so that you're looking at like the daytime view of a quilt and then you turn it over and you can see the heron in particular in a nighttime setting. If you've only seen one side of my quilts, you've not seen my quilts. I'm starting to see two-sided quilts more often. We now just have to get the quilt shows to kind of catch up and allow people to see both sides of quilts because that's not often available. I grew up in Idaho, and my family, for summer vacations, we always went camping. One year we went to Redfish Lake, which is in central Idaho. We were there during the sockeye salmon migration. And I don't remember anything else about that camping trip other than thinking I could walk across that creek on the back of those fish. Hundreds, if not thousands of those fish. Well, today they don't exist. They can count on one hand how many sockeye salmon make it back to Redfish Lake. And so this quilt that I have is an abstracted view of the stream as it exists today. And if you look close, you'll see ghost images of the fish that used to be there. But it takes looking at the back of the quilt to see the stream as I remember seeing it as a child. Quilting is one of those things that is grounded in my family history. So it allows me to spiritually hold hands with my grandmother while still at the same time really stretching the boundaries of what I feel like a quilt is. This quilt is called Autumn Beauty. And this particular piece, what I did is I painted the herons separately on prepared for dye fabric. I then appliqued them to this background piece of fabric that I loved. Then I appliqued the logs, the trees, I appliqued all of those on. And then at the very end, I really wanted to represent maple trees in the autumn changing colors, and I knew that I could not applique this kind of shape, and so after I had the entire quilt top done, I walked up to the top with a red, a paintbrush with red paint and said, "Oh dear God, I hope this works," and just dabbed on the paint, and then wherever I put the paint, I then just quilted real heavily in that particular area. To give it the kind of the look of the maple trees. In the front, I used invisible thread because I didn't want to take away from this wonderful gradation on this particular piece of fabric. Starting at about 2000, I had quilts in a gallery, and it was about in 2002 that I actually kind of plugged into the quilting community. I joined the local quilt guild, and I also entered a couple quilts in a few quilt shows. And the very first quilt I entered into the Northwest Quilting Expo won Best of Show. I've probably won dozens of awards. They are meaningful to me. But I think that the important thing for any quilter to kind of take away from that, because I know an awful lot of quilters are afraid to enter their quilts and have them judged. You can learn a tremendous amount about your quilts, about your style, what you're doing correctly, what you're not doing correctly from entering those quilt shows. The very first quilt show I ever saw was the 1996 AQS show in Paducah, where we saw, of course, magnificent quilts. And I can remember walking up and really studying the quilting on any number of those quilts. And then I went home and spent the next 4 years in my sewing room teaching myself how to machine quilt. I think that the quilting itself is another layer of design that we as quilters have available to us. Today, I spend 1/4 of my time working on the quilt top and about 3/4 of my time actually quilting it. I recently retired from Clark College, where I was teaching computer software application classes for the last 20 years. People often ask me if I use computers to help design my quilts, and the answer is no. I always view sitting in front of a computer as work. My favorite time is when I have a piece of paper on the wall and a pencil in my hand. My best advice for new quilters is to spend time looking for the right machine and don't scrimp on that machine. My sewing machine is 18 years old and I have no plans to replace it. It's a wonderful, wonderful machine. We've bonded. I'm not terribly afraid to try anything, although I do have a pile of rejects in my studio closet, but I don't necessarily consider them just bad things, but things that I learned from. And so don't be afraid to fail. If you learn from it, you grow from it, it will be reflected in your next quilt. I do a lot of thread work, and so as a result, I have an awful lot of thread. I usually spend more money on thread these days than I do on fabric. There's no such thing as too much thread. When you're choosing your thread, first off, look at your quilt and decide, do you want this particular area of your quilt to go into the background, or do you want it to come forward into the foreground? If you want it to go into the background, consider using cotton thread for that. Because of the matte nature of cotton thread, it will tend to kind of go away into the background. It doesn't catch the light like a shiny thread would. So if you have something on your quilt that you would like to come forward in your quilting, try quilting it with polyester thread, metallic thread, rayon thread, so that it will catch the light and it will tend as a result to come forward in your quilting. So take, for example, these two threads are very similar to the same color, but one of them is a cotton thread, the other one is a polyester thread. And if you look at them, especially on the spool, you can see that one of them, the polyester thread, is much shinier. It will do the same thing in your quilt. On this particular quilt is where I quilted the background, kind of the ground, if you will, on this one heron quilt with a cotton thread, and then I turned around and quilted these grasses, you know, the legs of the heron, some of these other things with a polyester threads, and they tend to kind of come forward more in the quilt as a result. People shouldn't be afraid of trying different threads because, you know, they all give a different result. Try different weights of threads, which is the thickness of the threads. Try different kinds of threads. And if you're not happy with a polyester thread that's from one particular company, don't swear off all polyester threads. Just simply try a polyester thread from a different company because they all have different quality of threads. The other thing that I would also mention is that it's very difficult to look at a spool of thread like this and say, okay, this is the color it's going to look like when it's in your quilt, because it's not. Thread tends to sew in a little bit lighter in color than it looks like on the spool, because this is a very saturated amount of thread, so it looks darker than it actually will look when you get it in the quilt. So get into the habit of taking the thread out of off of the spool and then laying that thread on your quilt surface. That's going to give you a much better idea of what this thread color is going to look like on your quilt. I want people to take the message that they can do this kind of work with their own quilts if they will just simply change their bobbin thread, make it match the thread that they have on the top of their quilts. They can do this kind of work as well and make the back side of their quilt as interesting as the front. And usually when I finish making a quilt, I don't have a front and a back to it. I just have two sides.
So what'd you think?
Wow, that is really great, Barbara. Thanks for letting us come and visit your studio.
You know, it's interesting, Ricky, as I travel from region to region across our country, you know, you'll go to some places and it's like, you put 2 different fabrics on your back, or you put 4, you can do that? And it's like it's a revelation to see that you can use different fabrics on the back of your quilt. But man, to have 2 masterpieces on both sides, Wow.
That really is amazing. And I know that back art is not so new, but doing what Barbara does, boy, it really takes a lot of work. And I think about the quilting community, how wonderful it is to see the finesse of art quilts, and yet how wonderful it is to see what we've been seeing today with 2.5-inch strips.
I know, how simple is that? And yet the thought that goes into both of them are just fantastic.
It really is. So we want to thank Daniela Stout for being with us today. Barbara, thank you for sharing your quilts with us. And oh, let's not forget to thank Eleanor Burns and Quilt in a Day, because we've been in their studios. And you know what? Orion.
I know.
Yeah, Eleanor's son has been helping us today. We want to give him a big shout out too.
He hustles.
He does. Everybody, thank you for joining us. And remember, it's a new day.
Every day. You know, I think this is amazing what you have done and what you've built up in your community and all that, and you just jumped into it with reckless abandon, yes?
Well, yes, but it wasn't so reckless. My husband and I put a lot of thought into it. We put a business plan together, and when it came time to make the decision of opening the quilt shop, it was not the decision of what to do and live with it, but the decision of how we could live with it if we didn't do something. And we knew we had this dream, and we knew we wanted to give it a go. And so we had to do it, or we had to abandon the dream completely. So we did it.
But what I heard is that you didn't even know what a fat quarter was when you opened a quilt shop.
Don't go telling people that.
No, but that's amazing. I mean, because if you're fearless, I mean, you really kind of are willing to just do things. And where does that come from?
I think it comes from just a feeling that no matter what, it's all going to be okay, that we can make it work. And what's the worst that'll happen? I mean, if the business failed, and we moved on to something else. But at least we tried.
Yeah, I love trying. And I guess the other part of that is it's better to have tried and failed than to have never tried at all.
Right.
But yeah, you just have to go for it.
Yeah.
Well, I don't even know that failure is really the word. It's more like, well, that didn't work. Okay, now let's go that way.
Yeah,
Right.
because you're going to have obstacles. I mean, I don't care what you do, whatever you jump off. Now I'm preaching it. You know how I do that. No, whatever what you do in life, you're going to run into a bump in the road at some point.
Yeah.
And you're just going to have to work around that.
Yeah.
And have you had your bumps in the road?
Oh, sure, yeah. We've had plenty of bumps in the road. But each time we take a new turn, it's a new adventure. And I think one of the things we've discovered in the quilt shop and with the publishing is every new adventure is a new story, and it's something more to talk about and feel good about accomplishing, and a new challenge.
It's a new opportunity.
Yeah.
And it opens doors of new opportunities. So what would you say to somebody if they have a dream?
Think it through. Make sure it's really a dream you want to pursue, because it's very easy to get wrapped up in a dream and then abandon it. And then jump in. I mean, give it a go. Like we said before, what's the worst that'll happen?
And fearless versus foolish.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it's important. You can go in there fearless, but you also, like you said, you got to think it through.
You got to think it through.
So
Think it through, and then after a while, experience kicks in. I know that if I go through something that I've been through before, I'm going to better be prepared to handle it the second time around. So over years, you get the experience, but most of all, it's thinking it through and having the confidence that no matter what, you can handle it, and if you can't, you can move on to something else.
Well, you have showed us some fun things today.
Thank you.
That has been great. We
Thanks.
appreciate your time on the show. It's been great to get to know you.
Thank
Wish
you.
you all continued success
Oh,
in
I appreciate
everything
that.
you do.
And thank you guys for what you do.
Oh, it's fun. It's a pleasure.
Thank you.
Thank you.